In this segment, we're going to create a basic Java application using the command line. Now, if you haven't created command line applications before, command line applications actually run in a little text box on your computer. It's how computer applications actually used to be produced, but it's a good way to get started. Now, I know our eventual goal is to work with Android, but command line applications are a good way for us to review the Java structure and Java programming language. So let's start our first one. I'm just going to create a text file. And I'm not going to actually use any particular template here, so I'm just going to create a new blank file, and then I'm going to create the template myself. Since I consider myself a traditional computer programmer, I'm actually going to start with the hello world, the traditional way you start a new language. So here in my text editor, I'm going to start by declaring the class. Public class hello world. Now that I've declared the class, I'm actually going to put what are called the class members inside it. Now, if you haven't worked with a strictly object-oriented programming language before like Java, I think you might find the class structure a little bit confusing. But just remember, at first, you need to know that everything in Java lives in a class, and those classes interact to actually create your application. So this Hello World class is the first class we're going to create. Now, the class should be the same name as the actual file that you're going to save. We'll save the file in a minute. Now, this class is just going to have one member, and it's a function, or sometimes called a method. And that method is our actual main method. The main method is exactly where the Java program starts running. So we'll declare a method like this: public static void main string args. Now I'm going to talk more about exactly what that means here in a minute. So if some of the syntax or nomenclature isn't clear to you, don't get all worried. So we're going to have one command that's actually executed. That's system out println hello world from Java. Now, I know you've done some programming before, so you probably can figure out this is going to output to the command line the words hello world from Java. And we're doing that using the println command or method. All right, that actually completes our program. So the next step is to save the program in the appropriate place and then compile and run it using the command line. So I'm going to click File and Save. And we're going to save the document in a folder called Java that I created. It's at the root of my home directory. Now, if you're using a PC, it's going to look a little different, but the process is essentially the same. You're simply going to save it in a folder that you create. You can create it anywhere on your hard drive, but make it somewhere easy to get to through the command line, somewhere close to the root. So there we are in Java, and I need to save this as a .java file. So I'll call this, of course, same name as the class, hello world.java. Again, hello world, and also the class is called hello world right here. Now, .java is the extension we use for raw Java files, basically Java text files that just contain our raw code. I'm going to click Save. And in my particular text editor, we get some syntax highlighting here for the Java programming language. Just makes it easier to tell the different parts of our code from each other. So now that my file's saved, I'm going to move to the command line. Got it open right here. Now, in Windows, your command line is going to be what you might call your DOS editor. In the Mac environment, it's called your terminal. Same thing on Linux. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move into that Java folder I just created, and you can see there is my file hello world.java. Now, to compile it, I use the Java C command. Before you do this, of course, you've got to make sure Java is installed correctly on your machine, and also something called the class path is configured. All of those instructions are available when you download Java from the Oracle website that contains all of the Java programming language and the software development kit, which is all free, of course. So when you download it, make sure you follow the instructions to set up your class path. If you need help with that, of course, you can post in the forum, and someone will be happy to help you, probably me. All right, so now there we've got our file hello world Java. So I'm going to compile with the command javac, and then the file name hello world.java. And let's let's see what kind of result we got. There we go. We have hello world.class. Now, this unable to find Java home message as user continue with system provided Java actually means that my class path isn't set quite correctly, but on the Mac it's actually using a different way to reach the Java programming language. So this is actually fine. I'm going to actually ignore this particular error here and look at my class path a little bit later. Now we've got this hello world.java class. Now that's the actual compiled Java file. It's called Java bytecode. Now the bytecode is interpreted by what's called the Java virtual machine. And this is the reason that Java is cross-platform. The same java.class file can be interpreted by the Java virtual machine on a PC, Mac, or Linux machine. So there's the hello world.class file. The way we execute it is we call the Java virtual machine with Java, that's the straight Java command, and hello world. We drop the .class. Now, if we did everything right, we should see our output, hello world from Java. And there is our output right there in the print line. So we're seeing it in the command line. So we know that we actually coded it correctly. Now, you might see an error here. If you see an error or even a series of errors, go back and check your code and make sure your code looks exactly like mine. If it does, it should compile correctly using just the two commands I just showed you. So let's review the code just one more time. We declare our class. We declare it as a public class, which means it's publicly accessible, meaning other classes can access it. We named it Hello World. We contained the class in these curly brackets on line 2 and line 8. They denote the beginning and the end of the class. And then within our class, we have one member. This member is known as main, and main is where the Java virtual machine starts executing. And in this case, it's public static void main. Essentially, this means, again, this is publicly accessible. It is static, meaning that it's run within the class, not outside. It's void, meaning it doesn't return anything. We'll talk about how Java methods can return something a little bit later in the course. It's called main, and if we wanted to, we could pass an array of string arguments to it. You should be familiar with arrays from your previous programming experience. Then the main method simply outputs the words hello world from Java to the command line. We compiled with the javac command and then used the Java command to actually run the class file. If this is your first Java program, congratulations.